Russian President Vladimir Putin is leading a high-stakes diplomatic effort among BRICS nations as they respond to a trade crisis sparked by sweeping tariffs from US President Donald Trump. Over the past 24 hours, Putin has held a series of phone calls with key leaders, including India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi, China's President Xi Jinping, and South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa, to coordinate a united front against US trade measures. According to the Kremlin, Putin's call with Prime Minister Modi covered both the war in Ukraine and ongoing talks with Washington. Modi reaffirmed India's long-standing stance in favor of a peaceful resolution to the conflict and extended an invitation for Putin to visit India later this year for the 23rd Annual India-Russia Summit. In a separate discussion, Modi and Brazil's President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva addressed the sharp 50% increase in US tariffs on Brazilian goods. Both leaders agreed to deepen cooperation in trade, energy, and defense as they work to counter the economic pressure. Putin also spoke with President Xi, briefing him on the latest Russia discussions regarding Ukraine. China, which has strongly criticized the US tariffs, particularly those aimed at India over its Russian oil purchases, labeled them a clear case of tariff abuse, and urged Washington to show restraint. South Africa's President Ramaphosa discussed both the Ukraine conflict and bilateral ties with Putin, later speaking to Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky about peace negotiations. The talks followed Trump's decision to impose a 30% tariff on South African imports. Meanwhile, Putin also engaged with Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko to review US peace proposals. Analysts say Trump's aggressive tariff policy is forcing BRICS nations, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, into closer coordination, even though political and territorial disputes remain between some members. Experts note that while each country will likely maintain individual talks with Washington, the tariffs could push them toward a more unified strategy to safeguard their economies. Brazil, for example, is seeking exemptions from certain tariffs while making it clear that any deal with the US will not come at the expense of national sovereignty. India faces similar challenges, balancing its trade interests with its own red lines in negotiations. Observers caution that Trump's tariff strategy may have long-term consequences, potentially deepening divisions between the global South and the Western Bloc. While these nations may not always share the same vision, shared economic pressure could be enough to bring them into closer alignment, at least for now.